So, as all of you know, can I start over?
Go ahead.
So as all of you may know, the 2014 Soccer World Cup and the 2016 Olympic Games are going to be held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. But it is having a large impact on residents that live in the squatter settlements where an Olympic park and soccer stadium are supposed to be built, along with other future developments that are in the process now. My main claim is that the eviction of residents from their homes will overshadow the new soccer stadium's positive attention to the country of Brazil. My three supporting claims are: 1, the eviction of people from their homes negatively affects them. 2, the evictions are harming residents' health. And finally, 3, the eviction of people from their homes leads to civil unrest. My first supporting claim, the eviction of people from their homes negatively affects them. Families are left with no place to go. Projects linked to the games have already led to evictions of thousands of families in at least 8 cities, often without adequate plans for relocation, sufficient compensation, or involvement of local communities, said Raquel Rolnick, United Nations Special Reporter on the Right to Adequate Housing in April 2011. I think it is unfair that these people have to move out of their homes and not be guaranteed somewhere to live once they leave, because it shows that the government does not really care about their citizens. Brazil has enacted laws protecting squatters' rights to occupy land, but the games are speeding up projects that allow authorities to evict people under eminent domain provisions. Even though there are laws that are protecting squatters, it seems not to matter if authorities can just evict people without having to tell the person beforehand. People are not compensated the right amount of money that they are owed for moving. Although some relocation is necessary for infrastructural improvements, authorities do not always negotiate with communities or give required compensation, according to Teresa Williamson, who has worked with grassroots groups in Rio for more than a decade. The fact that people are having to leave their homes is hard enough on them, and then not to be compensated or not given the right amount of compensation makes it difficult for those with large families. My second supporting claim, the evictions are harming residents' health. Residents are suffering from stroke, depression, and suicide after finding out they have been evicted. One of the residents of Manguinhos told the researchers his home was condemned by the authorities following a collapse, and the indemnity payment did not correspond to the market value of the home, much less allow him to buy another property. This person was desperate, stressed. Quality of life declines greatly in these cases, says Maurice. Because of the immense stress that is put on residents to move out in a certain amount of time, it takes a toll on them emotionally and makes them want to find an escape, which for some is suicide. There is not an adequate amount of clean water being given to those in the favelas. Lack of water supply has become a natural and common occurrence, and while it is essential and must be provided daily and with quality, this is not happening in the researched areas. And by not having sufficient water supply that is clean for these communities makes it difficult for them to live their daily lives if they are not able to use the water to cook and bathe with. My third supporting claim, the eviction of people from their homes leads to civil unrest. Violence between police and protesters break out, with the destruction of homes and residents not really knowing when they will be evicted. They are driven to protest and fight for their homes no matter what. Violence broke out between police and protesters, with police firing rubber bullets, pepper spray, tear gas, and flash bombs, and some protesters throwing rocks and bottles. In the midst of the tumult, one military police pointed a gun at the head of a local youngster. The most poor residents are not guaranteed to be given housing or some type of compensation. All current residents were told they needed to be out by Friday with no alternative accommodation or solution offered. Although these people have to leave their homes, the government should already have a place for them to move into or give them enough money to buy a house of their own. And these are the reasons why building a soccer stadium in the favelas may not be as good as it sounds. Thank you.
Well, I like the fact that you picked something that's timely and it's not going to be widely discussed, at least not in this country. It's an interesting topic, too. I think your proposition really seems to be focusing on what the public relations issue is going to be for the country and the government, and the supporting points really is more about what the negative consequences are going to be to the residents who are being displaced. So I think you never really talk about what the public relations consequences are in the supporting points, so it might make more sense to make that to make those supporting points support a general claim or proposition about what the harmful consequences of these evictions are going to be. You did do a good job laying out what the secondary claims were, and you signposted them very clearly as you were going through the speech. I do think sometimes the transitions between the secondary points could be a little bit smoother. It felt a little bit abrupt occasionally. On the first point, there are some value claims about what's fair that are being interjected here, and I think that gets a little bit off of the factual issue. I needed some data. I had a basic question in my head about how many people were going to be moved, how much area is being taken, are they going to be moved permanently? Those are the first questions that popped in my head, and I never got any specific information about that. Now, you did cite some authorities in the body of the speech who sound like they are involved in evaluating these issues. One's United Nations journalist and the other is an activist in the area. The activist, of course, is going to have a point of view on those issues, but they never cite any specific statistics or examples. They just make general claims based on their position, both of them, and I think that's a little bit problematic, showing those harms. Now, it sounds like on the third point that you've got a particular incident that you're talking about, and you ought to give us a source citation on that and describe, you describe in some detail what happened with the police officer pointing a gun, or that some of the rioters threw rocks or bottles or other objects, that kind of thing. What I think might have been helpful on that point is some information about how typical that is. Has that been going on for a long period of time? Are they continuous kinds of protests, or was it a single incident when an eviction was taking place? That's something that, if you're going to make a generalization on, that other kind of information would be helpful. I think that you did a good job building a point that there is definitely a problem with the movement of these folks. I wasn't quite sure why the water issue that you're talking about applied. I'm sure there's an explanation as to how it's connected, but it was not very clear in the presentation. All right, thank you.